We've dated for a while now, I know you're the one. You're the only girl I've known who's ever turned me on. I've mustered up the courage and worked out what to say. I'm gonna pop the question today. G'day folks, your old pal Scotty Baker here. Just here to do a short interview for Scotty Barber in the UK. He's asked me would I help him out with, he's doing a series of interviews with different musicians, and I'm his Australian connection here. So I have 10 questions here that he's sent me, and I'll do my best to answer them without rabbiting on for too long.
Well, hello and welcome to episode 1 of series 2 of Artists in the Spotlight with me, Scotty Barber, from Mayhem Rockabilly Productions. And look, we're outside, the sun is shining, summer is here, and this July feature is with rockabilly sensation Scotty Baker. Apple juice is poured, the laptop is ready, and we're ready to chat to one of the kings of the modern rockabilly circuit. Obviously, series 1 was created during lockdown. The weather was poor, we couldn't meet in house, we couldn't mix, etc, etc. This would be impossible to do. Obviously, Scott is in Australia to do face to face. The rest of series 2 will still be done via this internet social media way and technique. Series 3 in January 22 or February 22 will be face to face. So that's something to look forward to. All right. Without further ado, let's chat to Scotty Baker and see what he's got to say and see what he's been up to in Australia. So, thank you, Scotty. Welcome along. Long time no see. It has been a while. First of all, how have you been? And what has been the impact of the coronavirus pandemic in Australia?
We've been very lucky here in Australia. Our government very much looked after us, and we're on a payment called JobKeeper throughout the lockdowns we had. We've had a few lockdowns, but the longest one was about for 6 months. And yes, we're all on JobKeeper. Gigs, of course, all dried up. Everybody's locked in their homes, just like you guys over there. So same kind of things. Probably an outcome no one saw coming was house prices have gone through the roof. Actually, car prices, house prices, everything's gone through the roof. Good if you own a house or a car. Probably not so good if you're looking to buy either of those two. And then, yeah, gigs. It all went online, didn't it? We've all done the live shows. A few of you may have seen my live shows I was doing through the lockdowns. So yeah, it's been good for me as far as I'm a home owner, so my house value has gone up, and I live on a pretty big property and have lots of stuff I can be doing, so being locked down wasn't too harsh for me, but I know others struggled. It was hard for a lot of people. Anyway, we're currently locked down as we speak again. The state I live in, Victoria, had a small outbreak, and they've locked us down to nip that in the bud, which I think is working. I'll be back to work before I know it, I'm sure.
So, Scotty, let's go back right to the beginning. Let's go back how you all started. How did you get into this music, this fantastic music scene? Talk us through your path from when you first started to where you are now in the present day as such an established artist on the scene.
Wow, that's a big question. That path is a long one, so I won't go through it in too much detail. I started off being interested in music when I was probably 13 or 14. That's when I started learning to play guitar. Interestingly enough, my talents haven't really improved in my guitar playing since then. And you know, a couple of guys at school and I decided we wanted to learn instruments. I learned guitar, another mate bass, another mate drums, and we had a bit of a school band playing AC/DC and Poison, Def Leppard, all that sort of stuff from that era that we went to school in. But a friend of mine, and this goes into question number 3, personal and musical influences, who and why. Personal influence was a fellow by the name of Kevin O'Hara, who actually from the UK and come to live over here many years ago. He was a great influence on my music, or me becoming involved in music. He played guitar himself, and he showed me chords. He showed me the first few open chords on a guitar that I'd ever learnt. He was also a big Elvis, Roy Orbison, Johnny Cash, and Hank Williams fan, amongst others. So he introduced me to those guys. Like before then, I knew of Don't Be Cruel and Blue Suede Shoes, I guess, as far as Elvis songs go. But it was through him that I heard more early Elvis stuff. So, you know, Kevin was a personal influence, and Elvis definitely was a musical influence on my life. And then, of course, Johnny Cash, same kind of thing. Heard more songs that I didn't know that Johnny Cash had recorded through Kevin, and I didn't know much at all about Hank Williams until I met Kevin, and like Hank being a brilliant songwriter and storyteller. So those influences, I'm sure, have rubbed off on me. I'm pretty known for being a storyteller in my songs. Most of my songs are a story, not just mindless, yeah baby, yeah, rock, 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 baby, yeah. I wish I could write a song like that. Sometimes that would be so much easier.
Eager to know this, your first steps into rockabilly music, what were they?
Well, it all probably stemmed from hanging out with Kevin. Kevin was about my dad's age, or he was like my parents' age. So he would drive us around to local music nights you could get up and sing, like country and western ones they were, country and western music nights. So you could walk up and do a few songs and play with the house band. So that got me up on stage, that got me singing covers. As you know, I'd already been in a bit of a school band, but that got me, I was starting to sing covers of Elvis and Johnny Cash and stuff back then. Rockabilly, but I guess for rockabilly and writing my own songs, that came about many years later, or years later. My fiance and I would drive up to Winter Sun, a festival up in Queensland, and it was a rock and roll festival, but there was like this little rockabilly element to it, and it was like where all the cool kids hung out. Yeah, there was rockabilly bands playing there, and that music was I felt much more alive listening to that. I like rock and roll, but the rockabilly was just more intense. And the other thing I noticed up there was guys who are now friends of mine, but I didn't know them then, like Rusty Pinto, Ezra Lee, Pat Capocci. Those guys were up there, and they were singing their own songs. They were writing their own songs and singing them. And I was just amazed how people loved hearing songs that were new. Like, I just thought, back then I was in cover bands, and I just thought everybody wanted to hear classic rock and roll, like all the classics that had already been hits. Didn't dawn on me to write songs. I didn't think anyone would be interested. So Winter Sun was what sort of started me thinking about writing my own songs. And Just Like That was the first song I ever wrote. And that came from that experience of seeing other guys writing their own songs. And the song itself came from my experience of driving an old car around. I still drive old cars around. And people pulling you over and telling you they had a car just like that. Or their grandpa had a car just like that. And as the song tells you, it was nothing like that.
Well, the country's fine, and you want to milk cows from the city. Life is a cat's meow. Move to the city. They're gonna move to the city. Well, I'll head to the city, go leave this old head town. Let's pack up the old farm yard. Well, folks around here say it's a rat race, but to me the big smoke is the place. I'm gonna move to the city. I'm gonna move
now you're into rockabilly, let's go a little bit closer to home, or our home anyway, playing the Rockabilly Rave in the UK. You went from a virtual unknown, especially in this country anyway, to being on the bill for 3 or 4 years in a row. You were the poster boy. Jerry Chatbox obviously trusted you enough to do that. So what are your feelings towards the Weekender? How did it originally come about? How did Jerry Chatbox capture you, should we say? And what's your opinions on the UK English scene?
How did it come about? I was playing a festival for a local Australian promoter called Arthur Matz, called a show called the Camperdown Cruise, and I've played that a few times for him over the years. This particular year, Jerry Chatterbox was going to be over. His wife Marianne was going to be performing, and he was going to be DJing. And a mate of mine, Jamie Supper, who I've released my first 2 albums through, he told me, mate, Jerry Chatterbox is going to be over here. You don't know who he is, but just do your best, because if he sees you and if he likes you, who knows what'll happen. He has this big festival in England, blah, 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 the Rockabilly Rave. So I did do my best, a bit like today. I was a little bit under the weather and a bit sniffy, and I probably wasn't singing as best as I could, but he saw the show and he came over afterwards, after the show, and really pumped my tyres up. It was like a very humbling thing, actually. He came over and told me that he'd travelled over this way, not expecting at all to see an artist that he'd never heard of singing a set of original songs, because by then I was doing mainly original songs. I did a couple of covers. Anyway, so he said to me, he travels the world looking for the best people to play the rave, and you, my friend, deserve to play the rave, which was so lovely. And he asked me, the only thing I do ask is 2 things. You'll have to play with Pat Capocci. You can't bring your band because I've already booked Pat, which I said that wasn't a problem. I'd played with Pat for many times over the years before that. And the other thing was, he said, do a set of your own songs, because we've got any amount of guys over in the UK that can do covers brilliantly, but there's no one over there doing your songs. So do a set of your own songs, which is what I did do in the end. So that's how it came about. I was really lucky that Jerry saw me that festival. I was booked, so thank you, Arthur. Jerry saw me and was impressed, and I think it was 2013 I played that next rave. And yes, my opinions on the Weekender. It's my favourite Weekender. I guess it's very special to me because of how it all come about. That particular first performance with Pat and the guys, that was a life-changing experience. I played in front of thousands of people there in that big room, because they all come to see who is this guy on the poster, because Jerry decided to put this unknown person on the poster. So that created a huge amount of interest, and so the joint was absolutely packed. And, you know, although I do play with Pat, I have played with Pat over the years, I still really wished I was with my guys who knew my songs that bit better. And it was, you know, I would be doing my very best. It still went really, really well. It went very well. And there's some people actually who prefer me with Pat now because they heard that first show. But that was just amazing. And I can remember sitting with Pat and Damo and the Goat, those 3 guys from the band, having dinner just before we went on, and one of the Aussie guys from the scene over here was over that year, and he came and saw us, came and sat down with us and asked how we were feeling, and we all said how we were quite nervous. And he said, don't worry, mate, the guys over here in the UK, they know music really well. If they don't like you, they'll just stand up and walk out, or they'll just turn around and walk out. Way to make me feel even more nervous before I walk on the stage. Well, I've played 6 raves now. It would have been 7, but COVID cancelled one. So I'm pretty sure you guys in the UK enjoy my music. So sucks to old mate.
So Scotty, we're going all the way back now to June 2014, if you can remember that far. 7 years ago now, just over 7 years ago. That's the first time I saw you at the Rockabilly Rave. You had Hank's Jalopy Demons, who were also playing. The guys from that band were backing you on your set. And I remember you went down the storm. You're absolutely erupted. The fans knew you from the year before when you played, obviously when you said when you were with Pat Capocci. The following year later, you returned with the Dole Brothers, who I've seen you play and tour Europe with. The Dole Brothers are fantastic. Western swing, hillbilly sort of rockabilly band. But personally to you, how did it feel to hear the crowd in this country who didn't really know you until a year before, singing all your songs live, word for word, along with you? As that's your own material, that must have felt absolutely incredible.
Well, Hank's Jalopy Demons, those guys are the guys who back me over here. They're my usual band over here. So it was great to have those guys over there and have them experience that feeling too, because festivals over here are great, but there's nothing like the rave. So yeah, that was a great experience playing with those guys. And then yes, the following year with the Dole Brothers, and I've since played the rave a few times with the Dole Brothers. I've made lifelong friends with those guys. Those guys put in many hours learning and practicing my songs, so anytime I walk out on the stage with those guys, I just know it's going to be great. They just nail it every single time. The Dole Brothers are a great bunch of guys. But how does it feel to have the crowd singing along to your songs? It's an amazing feeling. It's like the best feeling for a songwriter, because you might have written a song in your bedroom, 50 Buick. I remember writing that song, and my partner at the time hated it. She hated that sort of music, and well, years later, the whole crowd singing along to that song. So that was a very gratifying thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Scotty Baker. Society, and to have yourself a good name, and I should protect it from any girl who would cause it to get defamed. If I wasted my name on you, my dear, I wasted my name on you. You left me for another, now I'm blue, my dear. Yeah, I wasted my name on you. Oh yeah. Well, when we first met, you really blew my mind, and I thought you were my one and only flame. Little did I know after marrying you that my life would never be the same. Yeah, when we first met, you really blew my mind, and I thought you were my one and only flame. Then you got bored with the love I gave you, and when you found somebody new, I wasted my name on you, my dear. I wasted my name on you. You left me for another, now I'm blue, my dear. Yeah, I wasted my name on you. Let's get wicked!
touching on a little bit more about obviously your own music and fans singing along, I noticed that you did a fantastic gig. It looked incredible from the pictures and footage I've seen on YouTube and social media of your performance at Disneyland Paris. Just sum up that experience. What was that like?
It was, it's a Billy Bob's Country and Western Saloon, I think it's called. And it's just this replica of an old Wild West bar and saloon. And it's just an amazing amount of memorabilia, and it's just decorated amazingly. But the stage is like nearly 2 meters high. It's like a very high stage, and people can stand 3 sides around you. And then there's a balcony that follows the same shape. And then there's a second balcony. And we walked in there that day. It was in the middle of a tour. We were doing a European tour, and that night it was just packed. Like there was people hanging from the rafters. It was jammed full, rammed, as you'd say. It was just amazing, and yeah, those guys just dug us big time. There's clips on YouTube which I every now and then have a watch of, and it just reminds me how amazing it was. It was a bit of a tense gig in one respect because we'd done a bit of a tour. Traveling around Europe, we managed to have our bags and guitars lost. We found them they found us eventually. But so we rocked up there without all our best clothes, without instruments. We were able to borrow instruments and some clothing, and I didn't have my best shoes on, but no one noticed. But the most interesting thing about that gig was, as normal gigs normally, they're about a year in advance you do the organising. Every other gig in the tour we were doing, they were paying us on the night with cash, or they had paid us previously into our bank account. Disneyland, like probably the wealthiest of a lot of them, they strung us out, and the night came for the gig, and we hadn't been paid yet. And you know, over the entire year doing this, organising this gig, they were kind of like, "Yep, we'll pay you later. Yep, we'll pay you later." And then I eventually got a contract that said, "We'll pay you half before the gig and half on the night of the gig." Well, anyway, in the end we got there and we hadn't been paid the half before. And the Dole brothers were Gordon Dole, who, bless him, he decided that this has been going on for a year and you've not been paid and there's no sign of being paid. And like we asked the question that night about will we getting paid cash? Oh no, we'll talk about payment later, which is what had been happening the entire year. And Gordon decided to bring it to a head, and joint's packed full. It's like half an hour before we're supposed to go on. And Gordon said to the management, so see those guitars over there on the stage? None of us will be touching any of those guitars until we're paid. We won't be going on until we're paid. And although I was flipping out at the time, because my name was one out in the lights, if we didn't go on, it wouldn't look good, but it was great Gordon did that in the end, because that just brought the whole thing to a head. We got paid, we went on stage, and it was one of the best gigs we've done ever. And yeah, it's happy memories. That was just a bit of a funny side note.
The final feature, or the second from final feature of Series 1, was with Frankie Rydell from the Honkabillys. I'm sure you know their music. He's a great guy. He was on Wild Records. The people that have watched this understand and know what Wild Records is all about. But I've got to ask you, how did your move to Wild Records happen? How did that sort of come about with Reb Kennedy in California? Because you're more of a country artist, and obviously Wild Records is more of a heavy rockabilly sort of label. So yeah, explain the Wild Records scenario and release.
I can't remember what year it was. 2015 maybe. I was playing the Rave and Viva Las Vegas the same year. And again, through Arthur Matz from the Camperdown Cruise, he's friends with Reb Kennedy from Wild Records. I'd popped up on Reb's radar after the first rave or second rave, and he was interested in me signing for Wild Records. I didn't think I was a Wild Records artist, but I did want to do something with him, so I asked, how about we do a 45 together? I'll write a few songs and we can pick. I'll write a couple songs and we'll do a 45. And he thought I should maybe write a few songs because you just don't know how they would go. Anyway, I only came up with 2 in the end. I went over for, which was Cheetah and Secret Mistress. we went over. Pat Capocci was over there that year too, playing Vive Las Vegas. And the week before, we hung out at Reb's house, and that's where his studio is. Pat was recording his own album. And then once that album was recorded, I jumped in. Pat and the other guys left, and some other musos, local musos, got up, and we recorded my couple songs. So we did Secret Mistress a few times before we got it right. And then we decided we better do Cheetah because I was starting to lose my voice, as I do most times I perform. So we said, let's have a crack at it, and then we'll do a proper recording. So we just did it, and I guess unbeknownst to us, they were recording it, which is great. They were, because I was losing my voice halfway through that song. And in the end, Reb goes, we don't need to do a second recording. That was great as it was. And it really was. It's a really great song, great one take song. The drummer played the end a bit long and missed the ending, but Reb just faded that down to hide that. And yeah, that's how Cheetah and Secret Mistress come on. And Cheetah is, I think, my probably second most popular song. If you look on YouTube and sort it by view counts, I think Pop the Question, unsurprisingly, is number 1, and Cheetah is number 2. And that was great. Then we performed the songs live at Vive Las Vegas the following weekend. So a great experience, really good fun.
So Scotty, before we actually sum up and do the final couple of questions, I've got to chuck this in. I've got to ask you. I've always wanted to know. You've been dubbed quite a lot on social media and the rockabilly scene as the George Clooney of rockabilly. Tell us your personal thoughts on that comparison. Are you embracing it or are you against it?
Well, George is a bit of a salesman for coffee, so let me just have a quick sip of my coffee. The George Clooney comparison. One of my ex used to tell me that she thought I looked a bit like George, and I could never see it. It wasn't, excuse me, it wasn't until I stopped dyeing my hair. I used to dye my hair when I was younger, like a very dark brown. It almost looked black. When it was full of grease, it looked black. I was doing lots of Elvis stuff back then. And it wasn't until I stopped dyeing my hair and realised how grey I was under my dye that actually initially I just saw that and was like, there's no way I can be grey right now, so I dyed my hair for another year or so. But once I finally let it go, because I personally think a guy gets to a certain age where it just doesn't look right if he has hair that's too dark, so I stopped dyeing my hair and went gracefully grey. And it was after going grey that people started making that comparison and asking me, have I ever been told I looked like George Clooney? I see the resemblance sometimes a little bit. I think it's in my bushy, thick eyebrows and old-looking face. But, you know, George is a good-looking fella, and he's older than me, so, you know, if people still think he's a good-looking bloke and he's older than me, then, you know, there's hope for me in the future. But it's not just on the scene that people say it. I remember I had a guy come to fix my internet there a little while ago. And I had the day off work and I helped him do the job, and we got it all up and running. And at the end of it, just before he jumped in his car, he said, mate, I've got to tell you, I've got to ask you, has anyone ever told you you look like George Clooney? And I laughed and said, yeah, I hear that a bit. And he said, as soon as I walked in your house, I thought, I know you. How do I know you? Do I know you? And then he said later on as he's working, he dawned on him, oh, he looks like George Clooney. So anyway, I do hear it. It's flattering. Hey, there's worse people I could be compared with.
So Scotty, a little bit about my memories and everything with you. I remember getting the chance to talk to you back in 2014 after your performance. I was there with a good friend of mine, and we chatted in the early hours, and you were very humble, very approachable, very friendly. Only a brief 10-15 minute chat, not even that. The following year I went back, I checked into my chalet, we looked around the record stall, and obviously you were sound checking in the main hall. you recognised me from the stage, you shouted out my name and everything like that. And, you know, I was a bit taken back really, because obviously we only chatted for 10, 15 minutes, 52, 53 weeks prior to that. So I was really humbled that you remembered me, and obviously we've stayed in touch since. You seem a very approachable guy, that's what I'm trying to say. You seem a very approachable guy on the scene for somebody that's so popular.
No, thank you, Scotty. That was very lovely of you. I'm just a normal person, and I treat people the way I like to be treated. And it's lovely that you would think I come across as a nice fella. Thank you.
So Scotty, final question now coming up. I want to thank you massively for giving up your time to chat to us here at Mayhem, all the way from Australia. It's a real coup to have someone of your experience, your quality on this programme. So I thank you a great deal for that. The final question is, what does the future hold for you, both this year and beyond?
This year, well, as I said before, we're locked down again at the moment. I think this year will be, I have a couple of gigs coming up that if we are locked down again, I will get to. I think this year won't be a very musical year. Maybe next year I might start getting back to normal. Internationally, Australians aren't allowed to leave Australia at this stage, so I won't be doing anything internationally this year. I'm hoping that will change next year. I know I have at least 1 or 2 gigs waiting for me in the UK if I can get back anytime soon, so that'll be really great to get back and see you guys again. I probably should be spending this time writing an album. I really wished I had have written something in our lockdowns this time last year, but you can't force it. It's got to come to you, and I don't want to just release something because I can. I kind of think that each of my albums have set the bar higher than the last, and I'd hate to have a 4th album come out and it not be as good. I'd rather not release anything else ever again than do that. So anyway, I need to write a few songs. But as far as what I'm doing, it'll be more my normal everyday life. My job is quite busy and hectic and stressful and keeps me very busy. I have a couple of sons and a daughter, but they're in their mid-teens, and my 2 boys are getting, I guess, closer to driving cars, and I'm having a great deal of fun helping them restore old cars. It's something I've always done as a young bloke myself, and it's very gratifying that my boys are interested in it too. Maybe one day they'll be singing songs about doing old cars up with their dad. Anyway, I think that's probably enough for me. Thank you, Scotty. I'm glad you've been interested in hearing from me, and I hope the interview is okay. I know I rabbit on sometimes, but hopefully there were some interesting little things in there. So, hope to see you guys again soon. Hopefully it's not too long. I really miss you guys, and I just love being over in the UK. It's like my second home. I love you guys so much. Hope to see you again soon. Cheers.
Transaction decline, here all the time. Got no cash to pay the bill, piling up in my gill. I don't know where the money goes, but I'm broke on payday. Work hard every day, feeling just like a slave. I asked my boss for a raise, I haven't seen him in days. Second job, and I'm broke on payday again. Right now I'm broke on payday again. I know it won't always be this bad, but it don't go away. Oh yes, I'm broke on payday again. And it's a life from paycheck to paycheck, sitting around the bed. Oh, sitting around the bed, boy. spins it so fast, every cent to the last. Mom's bulging with clothes, the shoes are lined up in rows. Yeah, I'm funding my credit cards, but I'm broke on payday again. And now I'm broke on payday again. I know it won't always be this bad, but I don't know when. Oh, yes, I'm broke on payday again. And in a life from paycheck to paycheck, sitting around the bed. Oh, play blue, boy, play blue. And now I'm broke on payday again. I know it won't always be this bad, but I don't know when. Oh, yes, I'm broke on payday again. And in life from paycheck to paycheck, sitting around the bed. And now I'm broke on payday again. I know it won't always be this bad, but I don't know when. Oh, yes, I'm broke on payday again. And in life from paycheck to paycheck, sitting around the bed. Oh, take it home. Or as Jerry says, work on May's Day again.